Good morning. Thank you for being with us on WFAA+. I'm Morgan Young with breaking news out of the Dallas sports world. We are expecting an announcement from the Dallas Mavericks this morning following reports from NBA insiders about the dismissal of general manager Nico Harrison. Sources say that this comes after mounting pressure from a rocky start to the season and, of course, growing unrest around key roster decisions, namely the trade of Luka Doncic earlier this year. We want to get right into our analysis and reaction to this news that we are learning this morning. We have Joe Trahan and Mike Leslie from our sports team who are joining us now. Guys, I just kind of want to get right into this. I mean, this is stunning news for us this morning. What are you hearing and what are your initial reactions to this?
Hey, Morgan, thanks so much. Yeah, this is something that has been brewing. It has escalated quickly. The Mavs' awful start was really the death knell for Nico Harrison in terms of being the GM of the Dallas Mavericks. But when you look at this overall, it certainly feels as though the day that they traded away Luka Doncic, February 2nd, essentially Nico Harrison signed his pink slip because, you know, we're just in the infancy of this season. And yes, the Mavs are off to an awful start. But this goes back directly to, you know, everything that followed in the wake of that stunning trade, unprecedented trade of Luka Doncic. And, you know, it feels as though the Mavericks understood once they got new leadership involved with this, that at some point, because of everything that was swirling around, the fan unrest, the fire Nico chants, you know, all that's gone into this, it certainly feels like this was the first off-ramp that they could find, and they decided to take it. And that's why I say it kind of goes back to, listen, once they made that decision, and again, that decision was made as an organization, but Nico Harrison was certainly leading that charge. And as an organization, I think they made the decision that whoever led that charge would not be long for the organization anymore. And by and large, that is why Nico Harrison will soon no longer be the GM of the Dallas Mavericks. Shams Charania and Tim McMahon reporting that there's a 10 a.m. meeting that we suspect is going on at this moment, where Patrick Dumont, the Mavericks governor, is having these conversations with Nico Harrison. And at the end of that meeting, I suspect it will be shared with all of us that it'll be official that Nico Harrison is no longer with the Dallas Mavericks.
And I know we're still getting more information about that. And you mentioned, of course, the trade announcement on February 2nd. But I want to ask a question to follow up on that about April 21st, when we had Nico Harrison, you know, addressing this decision. And for the first time, at least publicly, with cameras in the room, he stood on that decision and was even asked if this moment should come, if he should lose his job. And he defended his decision and he defended his position. And so when you think back to those comments that he made and what we're learning today, what do you make of all of that?
Well, listen, in the wake of that decision, there was only one thing organizationally that they could do, was stand firm on the decision that they all decided to make and hoping that it worked out, you know,
better now, yes,
for the better. And, you know, interesting because at that time, they had no idea that they were going to end up getting Cooper Flagg, right, as the number one overall pick. And they were kind of just handed that bouquet. I shouldn't say handed. The odds fell in their favor, and they end up getting just an incredible stroke of luck to end up with Cooper Flagg. But at that point, there was really no other way to go. And again, I mean, when you think about Patrick Dumont, he relied on Nico Harrison in that moment, and it has become increasingly more evident that that's obviously no longer the case. There's been talk, I got a chance to talk with Tim McMahon in terms of some of the inner workings of what has been going on with the Mavericks. He called it a disintegration of trust between Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont. And it has, you know, shown itself in a variety of different ways. From what is understood, Dumont is actually relying on other voices other than Nico Harrison and listening to some of these other voices as organizational decisions are being made. One of those things actually, and interestingly enough, is the health of Anthony Davis. 4 or 5 games ago, He strained his Achilles, and those who are around the sports world know that that Achilles injury is incredibly dangerous, especially for athletes who are older, because a lot of times those Achilles, those strains and calf strains, which it was called, can end up being issues with the Achilles. And listen, if that ends up being what that is, I could understand if they said, listen, Anthony Davis has to be shut down. That could have been, the final straw as well, because if Anthony Davis is hurt for any long stretch of time, that was one of the value decisions that Nico Harrison made when he made the trade. He thought that despite all of the injury concerns that surround Anthony Davis, he made that the big, piece that they got back. And if he was just dead wrong, because Anthony Davis, has suffered yet another injury, and if that ends up being major, listen, that could be that off ramp that I mentioned before, and that would make sense. That would make absolute sense.
And you just kind of answered that a big part of this question, and maybe Mike, this is something you can chime in on too. When we think back to this monumental thing that happened in February and everything that's happened since then, and I know Joe is just kind of getting into some of those things. Can you catch us up? What is the context for what we're learning today? What are the things that have happened? What's not gone well? Even of course in early season play that led us to where we are right now.
Well, because all of the things that Joe's talking about are exactly the things that all of Mavs fans were saying not 2, 3, 4 weeks, months after the trade, immediately after the trade. The reaction was, how do you trade for an Anthony Davis that is as injury prone as he is? So these weren't difficult things to predict, and they have played out exactly as many Mavs fans expected they would. Anthony Davis, for as talented a player as he is, and when he's right, he is a terrific player. This is not meant to be an indictment of Anthony Davis. But the issue that Anthony Davis has had throughout his entire NBA career is the fact that he is an injury-prone player. So the fact that Nico Harrison cast this trade as, hey, we're going to get rid of Luka Doncic in part because of his tendency to be injury-prone, which pales in comparison to Anthony Davis's tendency to be injury prone, did not make sense on its face when the trade was made, and was one of the biggest reasons why Mavs fans were so frustrated with this trade when it happened, apart from just the simple reality of trading away a 5-time first-team All-NBA performer in Luka Doncic, who was only 25, almost 26 when the trade happened. This is the outcome that Mavs fans have wanted for a very long time. It was on some level inevitable because this was always the way that this was going to go. Because again, Anthony Davis getting hurt, unfortunately for Anthony Davis, was not a difficult thing to predict. And Luka Doncic using the trade as fuel to be in better shape and come out and play very, very well to start the 2025-2026 season was not something that was difficult to predict. That was immediately spoken about after this trade happened, that we're going to see Luka Doncic go and get his revenge body and come out and dominate the NBA. And that's precisely what we have seen happen to start this season. He's been one of the best players in the world, again, right out of the gates here in 2025-2026. So there are factors here in Dallas that are pushing this decision along. Certainly the fact that Anthony Davis is hurt, certainly the fact that some other players have been hurt and the Mavs have just not looked very good on the floor. A lot of that factors into, you have to imagine, the hows and whys of Patrick Dumont and the Mavs organization making this decision. But it's hard to imagine that this decision also doesn't center around everybody seeing the obvious, which is Luka Doncic is dominating right now. So whatever decision was made to short sell Luka Doncic has not worked out. The Mavs short sold Apple stock and it didn't work. And that was a predictable outcome. And now the person who made that decision is seeing the fruits of that decision, because again, a lot of this was inevitable in many, many ways. It was just a matter of time, and starting the season this poorly only accelerated what was an eventual outcome anyway.
I do want to talk about fans for a minute, because as you've both said, and as we know, many fans have been calling for this day to come. And for many, this will be, and already is, a moment of celebration. We're kind of already seeing that on social media. We're hearing it from them. How big of a deal do you think that this messaging from fans was in this decision? And, what do you think that this decision will do for fans going forward in their morale this season?
I think that has to be at the center of why they're doing this. Yeah, right. And Joe, go ahead. But yeah, this is trying to win the fan base back.
Mike, you nailed it, right? Because think about where this organization is in its lifespan. This organization is in transition. This organization wants to create, a new arena setting, that they want to curry fan favor as they do so. They knew how bad that the fan reaction had gotten. And listen, I was there in the arena last night. The Mavs had a 13-point lead over a solid Bucks team. And you kind of, there weren't any fire Nico chants. Midway through the fourth quarter, I'm like, wow, are we going to get through this entire night without hearing the chants? That is not what I expected. But as soon as the Mavericks started losing that lead and the Bucks started reeling them in, we started hearing those fire Nico chants. And that is emblematic of what this fan base feels right now. And so I do think that's a big part of another facet of why Nico Harrison is no longer here, because there are big things ahead for this organization as they try and create a new arena environment, as they reach out to their fans to try and get them back in the fold. We know how many fans, lost their love for the Dallas Mavericks after that stunning trade of Luka Doncic. And so all of these, this move, almost begins a new era for this organization as Patrick Dumont continues to try and figure out the NBA. There obviously have been monumental missteps along the way. And I would like to redline this point and bright line this point right now, because I would submit to you that if you were only going to let 11 games, if you're only going to give Nico Harrison 11 games in this season to try and show what this team could be, they should have fired him before the season began. They shouldn't have let it get to this, right? Because there's a possibility this could be a lost season, because we know that Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, you can add PJ Washington as well. They are absolutely Nico Harrison guys. They are incredibly well paid, but how do they respond to this, right? What do they say about it? Did they go in and say, hey, listen, Nico was our guy. We understand you wanted to get rid of him, but you can go ahead and get rid of us too, right? And if that's the case, this rebuild could be that much more difficult, and that could only make the decision to trade Luka continue to linger in terms of its mal effects on this franchise, and that just does not speak well of the way this ownership has handled things.
And
I have two key takeaways, if I can jump in real quick on
Totally.
what Joe was saying. Sorry, Morgan.
No.
Two things there. One, I do think, especially in the aftermath of the trade, there was a lot of social media nonsense about, oh, this means the Mavs are going to move the franchise. They're going to try to go to Vegas. The owners don't care. I do think this is a big touchstone point for Mavs fans to see them make a move like this. It's a big signal that they do care. It's a big signal that, okay, we see, one, we got this wrong in a big way, and there's no way to change that. As much as this is a day of celebration for a lot of Mavs fans because finally they have fired Nico Harrison, is how this is going to be cast by a lot of Mavs fans. Finally is going to be a word that is spoken a lot today. It doesn't bring Luka Doncic back. That piece of this does not change. Luka Doncic isn't coming back because they fired the guy who made the trade. So that part is irreparable. But the other thing, as it relates to Joe's point about, hey, maybe this is a lost season, that may ultimately, in the long run, prove to be a positive for this franchise, because this coming season's first-round draft pick is the only one they have until 2031. So it might be a really smart decision for them as an organization right now to try and maximize the 2026 first-round draft pick as best they can, to have a running mate for Cooper Flagg and start to build toward the future. So this year being a lost year won't be fun for Mavs fans, but might be, big picture, the smart decision for this team.
And Mike, that's the other thing about this move, right? Because this also could signal, the absolute beginning of the Cooper Flagg era, right? And if this is, the end of the Nico Harrison era, that perhaps could mean all the other players that he helped get here, that they find other places to go. And the focus is, and I do think should be, on what Cooper Flagg can do and the the future, the bright future that he creates for this team. Now it's really interesting, right? Because it's going to be so different from what we saw from Luka. Because listen, we have seen Cooper Flagg develop incredibly quickly. He had a career high 26 points last night in that loss, made a really big bucket late in the fourth quarter, that showed some savvy and some moxie that continues to build very quickly. But he just will do it differently than Luka Doncic. It won't look the same, the way he puts his imprint on games, right? It's not necessarily ball dominant and running the show like Luka was able to do, but that doesn't mean that he can't have a fantastic effect on the game. So Maverick fans will have to sort of get used to that sort of thing from Cooper Flagg, because that's his skill set and that's his talent. But I do think that it's a great point, Mike, right? Because we're transitioning now, and this could be the the official beginning of the Cooper Flagg era.
And I do believe that we are getting Mike a new Zoom link so that he can pop back up for us. And in just a minute, we're going to get into, talks about interim leadership as this decision's been made. If you are just now joining us, we are following reports that the Dallas Mavericks have parted ways with Nico Harrison. And we want to play some sound that we got from last night of fans who were calling for this decision to be made. Yeah, again, that was from the game last night. And, Joe, this just really piggybacks on everything that you've been saying so far this morning. This was something that we've been hearing from fans for months. So one of the things that I want to ask you about, I know that this decision, we heard from NBA insiders that this decision was made official during a meeting that was scheduled for 10 o'clock this morning. We're also seeing reports that at 10:30, so just a couple of minutes ago, the Mavericks and Patrick Dumont are scheduled to have a meeting where they were going to appoint Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi to lead basketball operations in the interim. What can you tell us about what that means?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Maverick fans are obviously very familiar with the work of Michael Finley as he starred for this club for so long, and he's been really instrumental in the front office for the last few years in terms of soaking up that experience. And so, he and Matt Riccardi will become a couple of the leading voices in terms of basketball operations, for this team moving forward, because there will be some difficult decisions that have to be made, some of which I hinted to, right? How do players react to what happened to Nico Harrison? How does the organization go on? Which players do they decide to keep? When do those moves need to be made? Is it going to be a fire sale? Is it going to be, hey, listen, Maverick fans, we know we messed up, right? And we're going to make it right. We're going to tear it down. It's going to be a rebuild. And the restoration starts today, right? Is that what we're going to be dealing with? And if so, there need to be voices who can help shape the future of this club and who can, come up with ways to deal with what's going to be going on.
It's so interesting you talk about that. I mean, and can we dive more into the importance of trust, and we've seen the morale shift. We've seen the trust shift. We've seen how emotional fans have gotten about this. How big of a deal, how difficult is it for a franchise to rebuild trust with its fan base when it's been broken, and how crucial is it to that success for them?
Oh, it's so difficult. It's incredibly difficult because Luka was that guy for so many people. He felt like a savior. He felt like, he was going to be that guy. And Morgan, let me tell you something. I'm about to get a technician at my front door. My dogs are about to go absolutely nuts. I apologize to those who are watching us. If Mike's stream is back up, we might want to go to Mike. Full transparency, we're on WFAA Plus. We pull the curtain back. So if Mike is back up and you can go to him, Morgan, that would be a good idea, because I've only got about 30 seconds before my dogs absolutely lose
get
their
it.
mind.
We get it.
I'm not
Totally.
sure if Mike's back yet or not.
All right. We're waiting for Mike, but you go ahead, do what you need to do, no worries. If you are just joining us, we are following NBA insider reports that the Dallas Mavericks are parting ways with Nico Harrison, obviously something that fans have been calling for a long time. Obviously following the trade of Luka Doncic back in February, a decision that he stood on when he addressed questions about this in April. We were told that decision and announcement came at 10 o'clock this morning during a meeting. We are also hearing that at 10:30, so just a few minutes ago, there's a decision that was announced to appoint executives Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi to lead basketball operations in the interim. We were joined by Mike Leslie and Joe Trahan from our sports department. We're hoping to get Mike back. We just heard Joe say that he was having some dog drama at his house, so we're going to give him a minute. This is something that is such a big deal in the Dallas sports world, such a big deal for Mavs fans. We know that this is something they've been calling for a long time. So today has been a celebration for a lot of fans. And as Joe was talking about, there are a lot of questions about how this is going to move forward, how this franchise is going to rebuild trust with fans. So this is something that we're going to be talking about all day. Our Natalie Haddad is actually live at the AAC, and I believe she's with a fan who's got some reaction to this news.
Yeah, Morgan, we had just arrived to the American Airlines Center to see if anything was going on, and sure enough, our new friend Victor here came up. He was streaming WFA Plus, our live broadcast that we are on right now, and we asked him, well, how do you feel about Nico Harrison, at least expecting to be fired? We told him it is expected to be happening as we speak. What are your thoughts, Victor?
Why is it taking so long? Like, I'm connected, I'm watching, and it's not happening. We're ready. We're ready for the moment.
Well, I think we're just waiting on confirmation at this point. I know our sports department will be getting back to us soon, but when you first walked up here, I asked you, have you been a fire Nico chanter this season, and how did you feel when Luka was traded? I know you're feeling a lot of emotions. Take us back.
I don't remember where I was. I remember how I felt, and it was just devastating. It was not supposed to happen.
Yeah, and your thoughts on Nico?
Oh, Nico, I mean, he needs to leave. That's the bottom. Like, all the MFFLs will understand. We need him out of here. We need to focus on Cooper. We need to focus on the future. Now that that's been done, we can't change it, but we got to move on.
Well, take us back even further. We were talking about how you felt when Luka first got here. You even said to me that you thought his statue would be up here next to Dirk's. What are your thoughts?
That's what a guy said all over social media, and he's right. Luka's supposed to have a statue next to Dirk's, and that's not happening. I mean, you totally got screwed up. Totally, we're all bumped out. I mean, we can't describe the feeling. Yeah, it was something very unexpected.
You mentioned the word healing. That is something we heard from other fans last night as they were walking out of the game. Like, we just want to begin to heal from losing our superstar, Luka. Talk to me about that healing process for you and your friends that you were talking about. You said that you had a group text going about this possibility of Nico being out the door.
Yes. So we were here in 2011. We were singing with Dirk when Dirk was singing "We're the Champions." It's just culture. It's just something that's engraved in us. And yeah, it's just time to move on. It's time to move forward. But that starts with Nico being out of the Dallas Mavericks organization.
In an ideal world, what happens moving forward when Nico is out of here?
In an ideal world, well, I mean, all the fans are going to come back, the ones that were gone, to give it another shot. But now we can focus on Cooper Flagg. And we can focus on knowing that the new management, hopefully, they don't just build up around Cooper for nothing. Because that's what happened with Luka. We built around Luka. We were one Clay away. We got Clay, and then we get rid of Luka. So that's what we're hoping for moving forward.
I obviously can see that the Luka decision was not favorable for you. How did you feel about Nico bringing in Anthony Davis? That was also a really big deal among fans, analysts. It wasn't taken super well. What was your thoughts?
I mean, it's not just me. Like I said, it's all the Maverick fans of the world, and yeah, Anthony Davis is a great superstar, but he's not Luka. And what we want is to obviously focus on the future. So yeah, as far as Anthony Davis goes, yeah, I wish him the best. Hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
But besides that, we gotta see the bigger picture. We're trying to get another championship in Dallas.
You said that you haven't gone to a game this season. You said part of that was because of Nico Harrison. What about the rest of the season for you?
Well, I think it's time to come back. I think it's time to come back to the games.
Sure. Any final words about this decision, about the Mavs to fans moving forward? The floor is yours.
My Mavericks fans, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I want to start jumping up and down, but yeah, I mean, he's gone. He's gone, guys. Let's start the healing process.
Morgan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Natalie, thank you so much. I do believe we do have Joe back. What we just heard from a fan that Natalie was speaking to at the American Airlines Center was pure emotion. He said he remembered how he felt. He used the word devastated. He talked about his group chat. And something that stands out to me is back in April when we were listening to Nico Harrison defend his decision to trade Luka Doncic, he said he may have underestimated how passionate Mavs fans were about Luka. And that was stunning for me to hear. That was surprising to hear. I would love to hear, I know we're kind of looking backwards, but when you heard that, and was that something that kind of ended up sabotaging him at the end? Because of course, we just heard a lot of emotion, and that fan is not alone.
Morgan, I know that you take care of a lot of our investigative reporting now, and you're really good at that, and you're obviously really good at this because you just hit upon the root of why Nico Harrison is no longer the GM of the Dallas Mavericks. His underestimation of what Luka Doncic meant to this fan base and the relationship that Luka built with Mavs fans, and Nico Harrison's inability to see that and make decisions that were cognizant of that, and then his response to what he did. It kind of flew in the face of everything in terms of teams trying to build a real relationship and engagement with their fans. I think about the press conference that Nico Harrison held after he made that stunning move. I flew to Cleveland that morning at about 5 o'clock in the morning and got there because it was an afternoon game the next day, and it was a 8 to 10 minute hastily called press conference that was held during the pregame availability that Jason Kidd would have, before each game. And the inability to have an integrated message as to why he did this, the defense wins championships and we're going to have this 3 to 4 year window, and it was not cohesive. There was obviously no plan. And that day, I talked to Nico Harrison, and it wasn't a long conversation, but I said simply, hey, I would love for you to give, detailed reasoning on why you think this is the right move. And he told me that day, listen, Joe, I've turned down a bunch of national reporters, and I'm not going to do it now. I can't do it now. I said, fine. I talked to, the PR people at that time, and again, it was kind of the same message, but I do think that is the root of why we're here today, because if he understood kind of that love affair, that the way that Luka played, the joy with which he played, the fun that he created for a Mavs fan base, there were sometimes it didn't even matter if they won or not. You knew that you were going to see incredible basketball, high-level basketball, and you were going to have a chance to win. Right. You were going to be competitive, right, because of what Luka brought. And, to just steal that away and take that away from this fan base without understanding the import of it, that's the root of why, Nico Harrison is no longer the GM of the Mavs. So I do think looking back is important. And I want to hit one other thread because, what that fan said was really prescient. Healing process. Healing process. I think that could have gone into the decision making to make this move as well so early in the season. When Mavs Governor Patrick Dumont and others who are in his inner circle tried to make the difficult decision of sea change in the organization, I'm sure part of it was based on the fact that, listen, we're going to have to begin this healing process at some point. This is our off ramp. Let's take it sooner than later. It is going to be a mammoth task anyway, so let's get to the business of it. And I do think that healing process begins today.
It does. A new era for the Dallas Mavericks. Joe Trahan, thank you so much for joining us early and giving us your wisdom and perspective on this. It's so helpful. Y'all, this is news that we are going to be following all day today here on WFAA Plus, and of course during our newscast. Our next newscast starts at 11 o'clock. We'll have continued coverage of this throughout the day. In the meantime, have a good rest of your day.